What happens when one of the world's most recognizable supermodels looks at a Chinese star and says, This is how a real top celebrity should be? Tonight, we're not just talking about an outfit, a show, or a hashtag. We're talking about the moment Wang Yibo walked through the freezing streets of New York and turned Fashion Week into his own global stage. From unedited street photos going viral in minutes, to Emily Di Donato quietly but powerfully praising his presence, to international media creating dedicated tags just to follow his every move. Backhand index pointing right. Stay with Starwatch now, because by the end of this video, you might see Wang Yibo not just as a popular actor or idol, but as a new symbol of Asian influence on the world stage. Welcome back to Starwatch Now, your go-to channel for stories behind the glamour, where we don't just repeat headlines, we decode what they really mean for the stars we love, and for the future of Asian entertainment worldwide. If you enjoy smart, emotional, and respectful storytelling about your favorite celebrities, you're absolutely in the right place. New York in early December is not kind. The air cuts through layers of fabric, the pavements glisten with melted snow, and people move quickly, wrapped in thick coats, heads lowered against the wind. In the middle of this familiar winter scene stands someone strangely out of step with the season. Wang Yibo, in a light Chanel spring/summer jacket, crisp black trousers, and polished shoes that echo softly on the cold pavement. There is nothing theatrical about the moment itself. He is simply waiting for a car, checking his surroundings, adjusting his posture. Yet when a passerby lifts their phone and captures a blurred, unedited shot, something unusual happens. The image begins to move almost by instinct from one screen to another. It is not perfection that draws people in, but contrast. The fragile season against a spring jacket. The softness of his wavy hair against the hardness of the city around him. The quiet expression on his face in a place built on noise. That single photograph becomes the opening line of a much larger conversation. About presence, about aura, and about how a star can change the atmosphere of an ordinary street simply by standing still. For most of us, seeing a celebrity at a fashion show is a simple experience. We notice the clothes, the face, perhaps the pose. For someone like Emily Di Donato, it is very different. As a supermodel who has spent years in front of cameras, under lights and in the orbit of luxury brands, she has learned to read the subtler language of fashion. How a person breathes in a garment, how they claim space without forcing it, how a brand's spirit settles or clashes on their shoulders. So when Emily looks at Wang Yibo and expresses admiration, it carries a particular weight. She is not merely stating that he looks handsome. She is observing how comfortably he inhabits Chanel's world, how he manages to keep his own identity while serving the brand's aesthetic, and how his movements, even when seated, feel measured rather than rehearsed. Her praise suggests something rare, a synergy between star and maison that does not feel transactional. It implies that he is not simply wearing the label. He is translating it, softening its edges with youth, grounding its luxury with an understated calm. For viewers, this perspective from a seasoned professional confirms a feeling they may already sense but cannot fully articulate. That what is happening here goes far beyond a nice outfit. The front row of a fashion show is more than a line of chairs. It is a map of relationships, hierarchies, and expectations carefully arranged under the eyes of the world. When Wang Yibo sits beside Xin Zhilei at Chanel's Métiers d'Art show, their placement together is not accidental. It invites the audience to remember their shared past on screen, to read their presence as a continuation of a story that began years ago. The space around them becomes charged with layers of meaning. Their matching black and white looks echo the runway's geometry, as if they are part of the set design rather than simply guests. When Xin Zhilei leans in, laughing, hand resting briefly on his arm, the moment feels unforced, familiar in its ease. It hints at a private friendship that has survived changing projects, shifting schedules, and the relentless pace of the industry. For viewers scrolling through photos later, that small exchange becomes a focal point. It reassures them that behind carefully curated images, genuine connections still exist. It also subtly reframes the front row not as a cold display of status, but as a living, breathing scene where personal histories, professional journeys, and unscripted gestures all meet, if only for a few seconds, under the same lights. Luxury brands guard their image with almost obsessive precision. Every campaign, every ambassador, every seat at a show is weighed against the question: does this person reinforce who we are, or dilute it? At the beginning of any collaboration, a celebrity is simply an invitee, a guest brought into the narrative. Over time, however, a shift can occur. The brand and the star begin to shape one another. With Wang Yibo and Chanel, that shift feels increasingly evident. His repeated front-row appearances, his presence across multiple product lines, and the attention international media pays to his styling all point to a partnership that has moved beyond convenience. It suggests that he brings something the brand now actively counts on: a bridge to a younger, digitally fluent, Asian-centered audience that trusts his taste as much as his talent. In turn, Chanel offers him a stage that is not limited by language or borders. On this stage, he is not boxed in as idol, actor, or singer. He is read visually, instinctively, as someone who can hold his own among global fashion icons. For observers, this mutual reliance is fascinating because it hints at a modern reality. In a world saturated with images, influence is no longer one-sided. Brands need stars as much as stars once needed brands, and the most interesting stories emerge when both sides grow together. Clothing can be loud without saying anything, or quiet while speaking volumes. In Wang Yibo's New York appearance, the details of his styling invite a more attentive gaze. The tweed jacket, the placement of a brooch, the subtle roll of a sleeve revealing a watch, the relaxed yet upright posture, together, they form a picture that feels both familiar and unexpectedly new. What stands out is not a heavy-handed display of Eastern elements, but a softer kind of cultural assurance. There is no need to wave a flag or overload the look with obvious symbols. Instead, the East-West dialogue plays out in proportions, in restraint, in the way he leaves space around him rather than filling it completely. The result is a form of elegance that feels rooted rather than borrowed. This sits neatly alongside a broader movement: Asian stories, aesthetics, and creators finding genuine, not tokenistic, recognition abroad. In this context, his outfit becomes more than a beautiful choice. It becomes a visual expression of a generation that is comfortable moving between cultures without feeling divided. The tweed he wears is undeniably Chanel, but the way he inhabits it, the calm in his expression and the stillness in his body, quietly say, "I am not visiting this world. I belong here as myself." At the end of the evening, when the lights dim and the rain begins to fall, Wang Yibo does something very ordinary. He puts on a down jacket handed to him by staff and walks away from the venue. The show is technically over, but the story is not. Cameras follow him into the night, fans continue to call his name, and social feeds remain flooded with his image long after the last model has left the runway. This lingering presence points to a quiet truth about influence. Some guests attend an event, others become part of its memory. When designers see how their garments look and move on a particular person, when editors rearrange layouts to accommodate more photos of him, when audiences replay clips not for the clothes alone but for the way he carries them, the traditional idea of position starts to blur. It is no longer simply about who sits closest to the runway, or whose name is printed in the largest font on a guest list. Instead, the real position belongs to the one whose absence would make the room feel strangely incomplete. In New York, for many observers, that person is Wang Yibo. At that point, he is not merely competing for a place in the hierarchy. He is quietly becoming the reference point by which that hierarchy is judged.